Hey guys, welcome back to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we are back with a Ezreal supplementary guide, and today we're going to be talking about Terminus on Ezreal. So, without further ado, let's jump straight into the build. So of course, first up we're going to start off with the Gluttonous Greaves. It gives you the best early game power spike in terms of giving you the extra AD and the Omnivamp, and it's kind of better than starting off with a tier and things like that, because tier gives you no combat stats, whereas with the Gluttonous Greaves you can take more fights in lane. So I always rush the Gluttonous Greaves now. And then of course we go into the Mana Immune Triforce combo, pretty standard. Gives you mana, of course, extra damage on your attacks and abilities when you evolve it to Mirror Mana. You get the Spellblade passive, which does proc on Ezreal Q as well. All the nice stats, ability haste, attack speed, health and AD, things like that. Of course, after the boots, you generally want to go for a tier and then go for a Sheen as well, because Sheen is a really strong early game item. Allows you to proc your Spellblade in lane as well. Now here is where we get into the so-called funky part, where we go for Terminus. Now Terminus, of course, is a pretty strong item. AD attack speed, of course magic damage on hit. Of course this does proc on your Q, because your Q does proc on hit effects. And also, of course, you're going to be able to stack up your passive, which is going to allow you to get armor and magic pen, as well as extra resistances, which of course, again, Ezreal's Q does stack this up more quickly as well, because it deals on hit damage. So why go for Terminus and not something else? You know, well, basically, Terminus, of course, the stats it gives you are all really good. The on-hit damage it gives you is really good as well. And it's just a very strong item overall. Although I wouldn't say this is Ezreal's default build, I think probably it's still better to go for the normal, like, Riftmaker and Sorrel's Grudge if you can. But this is an option if you're playing into a couple of tanks. And in the game you'll see later, I was into a couple of tanks. I decided to try this build out. It was pretty good. And, you know, we'll take a look at that later. Of course, Riftmaker is still a very strong item on Ezreal. You deal extra 10% true damage after 4 seconds. You get the Omnivamp. You get some pretty nice stats as well. And, of course, Bork, also just a really nice item. On hit, current health damage, you know, drain passive, nice stats, things like that. And yeah, so of course you do have other options if you need it for your like last 1 or 2 items if you want to swap them out. Things like Maw, GA, things like that. And for the runes, honestly, both Conqueror and Press the Attack are both pretty good on Ezreal. So the main way I like to look at it is Conqueror is like the default. I will only take Press the Attack in matchups that I think I can be very dominant early game. Of course, Ezreal is not the strongest early game champion, but into certain matchups, you can kind of, dominate champions early game. For example, if you're against like a Sivir, who basically does nothing in the early game, you can of course bully the Sivir quite a bit, things like that. Or if you're into like an engaged support that's gonna just take a lot of poke, then you could also try to go for Press the Attack, things like that. And of course we have Brutal, because you of course auto attack quite a bit, and also your Q procs Brutal. Giant Slayer in general is going to be the best here, and of course we have Bloodline for more healing. You could also go for the attack speed, Alacrity if you want, but I think the healing is probably just a bit better. And Bone Plating pretty much 100% of the time, because you don't really need Hex Splash since you already have a dash on your E, and so generally Bone Plating is going to be the best. And then for the spells, we are going to go with Flash together with Exhaust, a pretty standard combo. But with all that said, let's now jump into talking about our gameplay. Okay, so now jumping into the gameplay. Now, we're going to try to be going back to daily uploads if we can, of course if our schedule permits, but we're going to try to at minimum do alternate day uploads. Otherwise, we're going to try to do daily uploads if we can, if we have content and if we have time to record. But we're going to have to see how it goes and if our schedule permits. But yeah, we're going to try to up the content a little bit if we can. Anyways, here, straight into the game. Ezreal, as we all know, doesn't quite care about who your support is. Not very support dependent champion in any way, shape or form. In the early game, your goal is pretty simple. You just want to get farm and you want to land poke onto the enemies if possible. So here, of course, you never want to get into an auto attack battle because Ezreal doesn't win auto attack battles. You just want to poke them down with your Q. So just look for an opportunity. Like here, in between the minions, hit him with a Q. Most of the time, you're going to have to manually target your Q if you're trying to do this poke in lane, because the auto-target Q is going to go and hit the minions, so you do want to manual target your Q, and you should be trying to manual target your Q majority of the time anyways. It's just sometimes, when people get lazy, people like me, this one just press the auto-target. So here, again, manual targeting Q onto the Xayah. Xayah's taking a bunch of poke, does level up to level 2. She is like about a third to a quarter health or so, and she's going to have to pop the fruit. Come back to lane. Leona can't really do very much because her Xayah is so low HP that if Leona starts to fight, Xayah is going to die. So Leona is pretty much out of the game at this point just because her ADC has taken so much damage, which is kind of A little bit frustrating part about playing engaged supports, which is that if you're ADC ints, you're basically not able to do anything. Like here, Xayah's taking a lot of damage. Another Q lands onto the Xayah. Xayah's now at below half health again. And yeah, so here I have such a big wave that I actually am arcane shifting in for a trade, because if Leona engages on me, she's going to tank one entire wave of minions, and then the second wave is now here. So pretty much at this point, the game is you know, not unplayable, but they cannot fight us at this point in time, because if Leona goes in, she's going to tank all of these minions, and honestly at this point, we can't really do very much more to them. Lee Sin is now coming, actually coming, so now we're gonna actually just back, because you know we can't really deal with the Lee Sin so much, so we're just going to back, and we're just gonna pick up the boots. As I said, boots a really good early game item, and here you can see that they're struggling to shove in the wave, because remember we have a double stack wave, so there's a lot of minions for them to actually clear her. So my goal is to try to quickly reach the lane and stop them from backing. So here I made a mistake by auto-attacking the minion one time, because if I didn't, I would have stopped one or both of them from backing. So I should have just, you know, ran straight at them. My real fear of running straight at them was that Leona was just going to engage on me, and then I'm just going to die like an idiot, which of course could have happened. It could very well have happened, so maybe that wasn't a mistake after all, but you know, I felt that with Nami close behind, that probably would not have happened. So here, letting them reset means that Xayah gets the same item as me. Now she also has the Gluttonous Greaves, so we're at equal power level, and Leona now just engages on me, gets the stun, because now Xayah can fight. And you can see now I'm actually in trouble. Everybody flashes at the same time, basically. The entire bot lane just flashes. I nearly die, which is of course the nature of an all-in from a Leona and a Xayah. Honestly, I'm pretty lucky to be alive, because I got engaged on right outside of their tower. And then I got chain CC'd by basically everything, and I was somehow able to walk all the way back to the safety of my tower. Of course, I did have to blow my flash and my exhaust. Nami also had to blow the heal. But basically, all summoner spells instantly got blown in the bot lane except Xayah exhaust. So literally everyone used all their summoner spells, and yeah. So here we could also say that I kind of made the classic mistake of, you know, not really getting any meaningful advantage, but thinking that I did. What I mean by that is, you know, you do have these kind of games where, for example, you're playing Draven or you're playing Ezreal, you're playing some, you know, something very lame dumb. Let's say I'm playing Draven. I'm chunking the enemy team to like 1 HP, and they basically cannot play the game, but they're still able to get most of their minions, and they're able to not die. And then both sides reset, we get roughly the same amount of items, and then I go super aggressive on them again, and then I end up getting caught and dying. So that's kind of the mistake that's very common, because just because the lane state was like that previously, but after the reset it is exactly that. It is a reset. The lane state kind of just resets, and you know, you're not necessarily at such a big advantage as you were anymore. Speaking of which, Leona's going in. Amumu has cancelled his back, and Teemo is here as well, and becomes a 4v2 really quickly, and we end up picking up both kills, which is pretty nice, because of course our team just happened to be there. Now, the thing here is that Lee Sin and Kennen now end up coming, so I was trying to push and get a tower play, and basically I'm going to end up dying for overextending. And I guess you could say that this was on me, but simply due to the fact that if Teemo is here on the rotation, we can assume that Kennen is probably going to be rotating as well, since they're both the mid laners, unless Kennen is of course just choosing to trade and take waves and plates instead of roaming. And of course Lee Sin, we didn't really have any idea where he was on the map, so we probably made a pretty big boo-boo there by you know, just pushing when we don't really have the knowledge of Lee Sin as well as Kennen. So yeah, definitely deserve to die there, and we cop our first death of the game. So the game is a little bit rough in the early game, so thankfully I did not take press the attack. Although you could argue that if I did take press the attack, we might have been able to kill Xayah in like the early lane, like before we got any items. So I guess I guess there's two ways to think about it. But number two is that since we ended up getting a rough early game, Conqueror is just going to be better for a late game. So there's two real schools of thought here. I guess it kind of depends on your playstyle, your preference, and you know, just the way you think about the game. But I like to go for generally the more consistent late game rune, unless I really want to all in on the early game. Here, enemy team's getting caught. I get a nice ult across 3 people, and I'm just trying to chase in, but I get rooted by Xayah, who's over the wall. I exhaust her, and I'm trying to you know, deal damage to her, but instead we're just going to go for this 1 HP mid lane tower, and we do get the first tower of the game. So somehow Teemo has managed to destroy Kennen to an extent that he's 3-0-3 and has now gotten the first tower of the game, which I guess is pretty amazing. But on the other hand, Aatrox is kind of getting destroyed himself by the Renekton, so it's kind of balancing out across the lanes. Amumu is doing very well against the Lee Sin and has a good like almost 2k gold lead up on the Lee Sin. But the main, I wouldn't say it's an issue, but the thing here is that Amumu is building tank. So I generally have the feeling that if you're building tank, it's not normally that important how fed you are, because at the end of the day, the more fed you get, the more tank you're gonna get. Yes, you're gonna be harder to kill, but you're not gonna kill people a lot more easily. So here, another fight kind of breaks out. Nami gets a very nice wave onto 2 people. Unfortunately, Xayah still has the ulti, does pop it. I get slowed down by the Glacial Augment. I'm trying my best to kill Xayah, but she's really smart by not going for the fruit immediately, because if she did, she would have taken a Q from me, and she probably would have ended up dying here. So nice microplay by the Xayah to just not run at the fruit, which is obviously where I'm going to aim my Q at, because that's where I think she's going to go. But overall, I just get CC'd by Leona and finished off by Xayah. So another death, 0, 2, and 4 now. Not the best KDA in the world, but not the worst either. You can see that despite the fact we have 2 deaths, we are basically even in terms of goal with the Xayah. So she has 2 kills and we have 0 kills, although we do have 4 assists. So we are still kind of even there, so we're not really in the worst state in the world. But it would have been good if, you know, we could have gotten some kills in the earlier part instead of Amumu basically taking all of the kills. Now we're back into the lane to defend. The wave has kind of stacked up and is now pushing into the tower, so we're quickly just trying to clear this wave, and you know, so that, you know, we are able to basically do something. So here we're not quite sure where the Xayah and Leona are, just tossing the Q into the bush to check. Now this could be dangerous if, for example, my bush was warded and Leona was sitting on the other side bush, because she could engage on me. Speaking of engage, she goes in on Nami, but I'm just going to try to focus the Xayah. I'm going to quickly hop away before the root can come in, and Lee Sin ends up coming around the corner. So thankfully we don't get caught by the root there, because probably would have gotten just engaged on by Lee Sin, kicked you know, into danger and just dying straight up. But we are indeed able to avoid that whole situation just by Arcane Shifting early. Of course, we were at the bush and Lee Sin's obviously there, no surprises here. Amumu and Teemo are now coming in. Amumu goes for an ulti. I'm able to get a nice ulti across. Leona's now 1 HP. Kennen comes in, and I'm going to try to finish off the Leona. However, probably a mistake here, because I didn't really need to play that aggressive for the Leona. Probably should just focus the Kennen with my team and killed him, and we can all go for the rest of them together, because me putting myself in that situation and Leona being as tanky as she was means I didn't instantly one-shot her, and she was able to CC me, and Xayah and Lee Sin were able to focus me down together and end up killing me. So overall, it's just a trade. Speaking of trade, not Leona, but Teemo is able to pick up the kill onto the Lee Sin. So now 1, 3, and 5, again, a pretty ugly KDA. But, you know, we're not here to look at the KDA. We're here to look at, you know, what Terminus does for you and, you know, how it can really work, which we haven't really gone to that stage of the game yet. And we're not exactly doing the hottest in the world. Of course, Teemo is doing way better than us, so is Amumu. So at this point, we're not really the main carry of the game. We're not really, you know, in that kind of position in this particular game, unfortunately. However, we are going to try our best to change that situation. So here we're just going to quickly just clear the minions again, just shove in. We're just going to try to land some poke onto the Xayah as well as the Leona. As usual, nothing really changes here. Of course, we don't want to get engaged on by Leona, so we do want to maintain our distance or have our finger on the trigger. We can see Kennen roaming this time on the river, so we are careful and cautious this time. This was probably warded because the Nami's getting caught. We get a very nice ulti across the two of them. Xayah has to ult, and here Amumu goes in, picks up the kill onto the Leona and the Xayah as well. So again, Amumu's just taking all of the kills. He's 6-0 and 5 now, but you can see that he is building just full tank, which is at this point it becomes actually a misplay to steal kills from your ADC, because if you're Amumu and you're already like 4-0, you have two full completed items, and you're probably about to complete your third item really soon, and you're building full tank. So he does have a Rylai's, but he's building full tank afterwards. The Rylai's for the slow on his WISU, and he's even trying to take my wave now. You really need your ADC and your mid laner or whoever else is your carry on your team to get the goal, because if you steal all the gold, you're actually sabotaging yourself by sabotaging your team, because if you get all the gold and you're only going to build tanks, it means your damage dealers are not going to have the gold to build the damage items. So if you tank all the damage from the enemy team, it doesn't actually matter, because your team doesn't have the your team members don't have the damage to kill the people on their team, because you've taken all of the gold, and then there's gonna be a situation where you basically just start flaming your team's damage dealers. But it is their fault, but it is also your fault because you're not giving them any kills that they can use to carry with. So how can you expect them to carry you when they have no kills, no gold, and no items? Anyway, speaking of which here, it gets into a very long extended fight where the enemy team ends up overextending by a mile. Lee Sin has to kick me away to get to safety. Renekton tries to go in 1v3 because we're all pretty low, but I'm just running him down basically. And Teemo picks up the kill onto the Renekton. However, at least we've now picked up like 2 quick kills, so now we're at 3-3 and 8. We have some kind of gold in our pocket. We actually are slightly ahead of the Xayah now. And honestly, we're slightly ahead of everybody on the enemy team except Renekton, who is, of course, really fed from the kills of the Aatrox. Now here I'm trying to snipe the Lee Sin, which I thought he was going to run all the way back to base, but he doesn't. So here I'm instantly going to have to finish him off eventually. But because of that, I do get finished off by the cannon. Or actually, I don't, but I end up getting caught by the cannon and then finished off by the enemy bot lane. Nami is going to follow me to my grave as she gets slowed by Leona ulti and does end up dying as well. And yeah, so now 4, 4, and 9. Every time we get a kill, we do end up dying. Although I would say that, you know, we did catch a lot of deaths in the early game, so we have kind of caught up in terms of kills. We're halfway toward building our Terminus, and we have actually eclipsed Teemo in terms of goal. Of course, Amumu is ahead of anybody else in the game by a country mile because he's basically just gotten all of the kills. He's at 3 full completed items. Should be really tanky at this point, and honestly, with his Rylai's, he can kill people via death by 1,000 cuts. Just they can never really escape because of the Rylai's. They can just basically slowly but surely run them down. Although I don't know how advisable that is, because doing that kind of strat basically leads to you running into the rest of the enemy team majority of the time. Speaking of running to the enemy team, you know, there is a fight over here in the Baron Pit. I'm just cutting back. I'm really focusing Renekton, who's the only person I can really focus because I can only really attack first target. Lee Sin tries to jump in on me, but I exhaust him immediately because obviously when you get tagged by the Lee Sin Q, you know he might jump, so I'm spamming my exhaust button. The moment he comes into the exhaust range, gets exhausted and doesn't do as much damage with his Q. And we're able to kill the enemy bot lane in trade for our Teemo, so we have a 4v3 advantage, sorry. And we're gonna start out the Baron. Now the enemy jungler is still up, so it's not really the safest Baron in the world. However, we should be able to get it. Lee Sin is actually now on the wrong side of the map, so definitely it's gonna be a free Baron. Cannon gets caught, and yeah, you can see here now we actually have the damage to kill him. Yeah, so you know Ezreal still does do a pretty good amount of damage, and finally Amumu actually decides to leave the wave alone and lets me finally collect the wave. Thank you very much. And we're gonna quickly reset and complete our Terminus. So here you can see that Terminus really works against Leona as well as the Renekton, who are the 2 main tanky targets of their team. Of course, Renekton does have, you know, items like Sterix as well as a Divine Sunder, and Leona of course does have her Dawn Shard, and it looks like she might be building a Twin Guard based on the components she has now. But yeah, that's definitely going to be very helpful. So our team is pushing mid, and in the meanwhile, while they're kind of quote-unquote distracting the enemy team, we're going to push bot. Ideally, Aatrox should be pushing top instead of farming the enemy jungle. When you have Baron, you really don't want to be wasting time counter jungling or like farming your own jungle, even worse. But you really want to be pushing with your Baron buff. So now here we've now attracted the attention of all of the enemy team members, which now allows our team to push mid. So you can see how Baron pushing really works, which is you want to be pushing separate lanes. So if the enemy team chooses to respond to one lane, some other lane is going to get destroyed instead. Or, you know, if the enemy kills someone in one lane, you're going to be able to trade it for some towers on the other lane. But now, Huge Pride ends up breaking out mid. Amumu ends up going legendary, but he has nowhere to run, and looks like he's about to fall really soon. And does end up going down eventually. However, only the enemy bot lane is left, and honestly, I don't think we have to be too scared of the enemy bot lane. I don't really think they can do too much to us at this point, as long as I don't get rooted, which I do. I exhaust the Xayah, and I'm going to hop to the side, just get a Q auto in, and we are able to still finish off the kill onto Xayah regardless. So now, we do have Ocean Soul, which is somewhat useful of a soul, so we are going to try to hit over there while both junglers are still dead. Both junglers should reach the scene about the same time, so what we want to do here is we want to quickly do the dragon. Now, I'm going to pull the dragon out because it's going to make it harder for Lee Sin to land a Q on the dragon and to steal. So, and another thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stand between the dragon and the enemy side wall. So you can see I'm repositioning myself to stand between there because this will make it harder for Lee Sin to steal, because even if he Qs onto me, he doesn't get to execute damage onto the dragon. He can only smite the dragon if he's able to do that properly. But if he Qs directly onto the dragon, the Q damage plus smite will instantly secure the dragon, and I can't out-damage that in any way. So I'm just trying to lower the chances of him stealing the dragon by as much as possible, which is a very minor detail, but which didn't really matter in this particular game, because he wasn't in time anyway. But in some other games, this could be the difference between getting the dragon and not getting the dragon, which then determines if you get the dragon soul or not. Fight is breaking in the top lane. I launch an out there, but only gets the Lee Sin at the side. Now Xayah's rotating to the fight as well. I decided to just zone off the Xayah from the fight instead and just go in on her. She has to basically just splash away because of how much damage I do. Now I'm joining the fight, Conquer fully stacked. Leona's getting caught. Is really tanky but can't really survive. I'm going to QSS Cannon's ulti. And this should be the end of the game. Only Xayah is left and she can't really defend the base by herself. We could even try to go for a kill on Xayah if we so choose, but we're just going to instead just end the game. And there we have it. So, thank you guys so much for watching the video. I'm going to leave you guys with the stats as usual, and goodbye.